Welcome back to the EFP podcast. I'm Mike Unlikely. Thank you for joining us today for what we're calling episode 6.5. I know what you're thinking. What do you mean 6.5? This should be 7. Well, on the last episode with Mike Best, we didn't have enough time to get to all the Twitter questions that you guys sent in to us. I didn't want you to miss out on all the fun we had with these, so we're going to include them in a little special episode here. Now, just a little warning, you may not want to have any children around for this one. Alright guys, enjoy. So with that, Mike, we're going to get to our Twitter questions. We've got quite a few this week, as I'm sure you saw on the Twitter machine.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I don't care how many of them are sarcastic. I'll answer them all. I don't care.
I'm going to throw them at you. So here we go. Up first is our old friend Scott Stevens.
Is there lonesome loser?
Shout out to Scott Stevens. What's up, buddy? Is one reason why you're hated so much is because of your affiliation with How, or is it because you speak your mind and you can back it up with shit talk?
I mean, that's kind of a weird, multiple choice question when I don't really think it's... First of all, I don't think my affiliation with HOW's ever made me hated. I think HOW, it's more the other way around. I think HOW gets a reputation because if you don't know HOW very specifically, you probably know it is the Fed that Mike Best talks shit from. And so many people for so long legit thought that me and Lee were the same person. And I was the world champion in a Fed I ran. And actually, I'm going to piggyback off this Stevens question because you asked me about my current role in HOW and I forgot to answer it.
Yeah.
I'm just the glorified graphics guy for HOW. For anybody who's ever wondered, I do the posers, I do the banners, and I don't even really do it officially as a staff member. I just kind of do it because I like to do those. And if you call yourself a staff member, now it's a responsibility. And I only like to do them when I like to do them. So I just kind of do them when I feel like it. As one of the last remaining poser guys, I think it's just me. Ben doesn't really do them anymore. I don't think so. I think it might just be me and Dusty. Might be the only two left doing them actively. No disrespect if there's any other poser outers out there. I just don't know. But I very briefly helped run HOW. When we first came back, I was going to be the second in command. Lee and I were going to co-run HOW, and I actually joined a Fed called OCW and was role-playing full-time over there and then being a staff member in HOW. But when OCW closed up shop, I got bored really fast, and I transitioned back out of being a staff member in HOW, gave it over to Scotty Wood so that I could be an active role player again, because as we discussed earlier, don't be staff and role playing your own Fed.
Exactly, yeah.
It's bad news. But yeah, no, I think it's because I step over the line constantly. I know where the line is. I know when I should just shut up and stay out of shit, and I pick fights anyway because I'm bored. Because Mike, and there's a Jordan Snow question coming up that I'm going to save the bulk of this answer for because it's a very similar question. But I'm not Mike Best. Mike Best's Twitter account is. It's as simple as that. There's a such thing as the 3-point fifth wall. In pro wrestling, they call it a worked shoot. But I hate when people talk like that in e-fetting. Fuck you in your insider terms. It's just that even when I'm talking about some OOC shit on my Twitter account, it's not OOC. Mike Pelosi doesn't wish you any harm. Mike Best thinks you're a cunt. It just is what it is. I laid it out for Jordan Snow earlier this week. I'm not going to make fun of Madman Zelensky's diabetes.
Let's go ahead and cut to the question then.
Oh, sure.
Dear EFED podcast, can we please have your guest, Mike Best, please explain whether he knows the difference between in-character and out-of-character writing. I've always felt he failed to find the distinction between the two within his writing, thus why I've never been a fan.
And I'm, of course, very sad that Jordan Snow has never been a fan of mine. Also, that's not true, because me and Jordan used to be buddies back in the day. And me and him had a good come-to-Jesus talk this week, where we kind of hashed some shit out, because I may or may not have gone a little overboard reminding Jordan Snow that he's been in prison. Which, I mean, is fair. It's public record. If that way, I wouldn't out anybody. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. Madman Zelensky has made it publicly known that he has diabetes and that he's recovering from cancer. Some people have chosen to make fun of him for those things. That's over the line to me, because that's making fun of Jeremy the handler who has diabetes.
Yep.
Jordan Snow, who uses his eFetting account as his personal account also, I think it's fair if he's going to talk shit from that account, which he does. Even that question he asked is kind of talking shit a little bit. Like, it's a question mostly disguised, it's a comment disguised as a question. I
can neither confirm nor deny the allegations.
Yeah. So, yeah, but it's a comment disguised as a question, basically saying you fucking break the fourth wall and I don't like you. Well, you use your real life account as an eFetting account. You aren't automatically off limits, and you've talked publicly about being in jail. So when you say, I break the fourth wall, I say back, well, Jordan, you of all people should know what it's like to be confined within four walls. That's just what I do. The same as I'll make fun of Justin for rage quitting HOW, but I'm not going to make fun of him for being a fat waiter. Except for that one time.
Except for just now.
That's my one, because it's too good an example. But I will say something like, here's an $11 tip for you, Eric. Like, there's an art to it. There is an art to just stepping over the fourth wall just enough that only you know you're being attacked. And by the way, that's what eFetting was in the Old West. All you kids who discovered eFetting in 2014 and then tell a bunch of us who've been around since you had to play by email that we're ruining the hobby for you. I'm sorry that LiveJournal closed and that Tumblr stopped accepting porn and that your therapist charges too much. But this isn't your free therapy. If you want it to be your free therapy, go join a Fed with a bunch of other people who think this is their free therapy and their safe space to own a Dodge Viper and be a super attractive model with Becky Lynch's your pick base, and you have to date a Seth Rollins pick base because then you can find the good couples pictures. You want to be one of those, be one of those. And that's fine, but stay the fuck off of, don't talk to me on Twitter because I'm going to make fun of you.
Yep.
And you can call me a video game character all you want because I took the time to learn Daz, which is a free program, and learned how to make shit. I'm still going to make fun of you. Just stay out of my way and I'll stay out of yours. There's probably 8,000 eFetters I've never heard of who are just having a grand old time. It's the ones who want to have their cake and eat it too. The Mad Clan is a great example. Like, they want to be involved in everything. They want to be all up in 4CW shit. They want to be around HOW and OCW and all those feds. But if you don't mesh stylistically, don't try and force your way in because you need validation. Stick with people who want to play the game the way you want to play it. I want to talk shit. So if you want to do something with me, want to talk shit. Because if you don't, I'm not going to help you put over your weird sports model, like rock star persona. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk shit. Because that's what's fun for me.
But
Guys Dan.
But they just had a baby, Mike.
Oh, they all just had a baby.
That brings us to our next one. At User Poets, our good friend Pete.
Mm-hmm.
We know that being an in-character prick is a hobby of yours. Do you actively look for targets, or do you let Destiny bring them to you?
Oh, I let Destiny bring them to me. I'm never, bored enough. I don't have enough free time to go hunt down targets. What usually happens is that I get onto Twitter and I see some nonsense and I'm like, you know what they really need? My opinion on this. And I just stuff my way into whatever's going on. It's usually me jumping on with the 4CW people, which is funny because, it wasn't so long ago that it was me and the 4CW people at war. I guess the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Or, something like the big California wrestling debacle, where I'm not going to retell that whole story because everybody who needs to know already knows, and who cares. Just don't join California wrestling is the short of it. I was never there. I just watched somebody get fucked. It's a train wreck of a Fed. They have me blocked too.
I got blocked just for following them. I don't know what happened there.
But yeah, I'll insert myself into that because I feel like I have something to add to it. Most of the time, it starts with just some little poking, completely in character trash talk. And then some people get up in their feelings about it because that's not what this game is about. The game about fake violence and trash talk is apparently being ruined by bullies.
That brings us to our next question. The Claire Bitch Project. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen Twitter lesbian?
I answered this on Twitter, but I'll answer it here as well. An African Twitter lesbian or a European Twitter lesbian.
Let's just consider it your open forum for Twitter lesbians.
So, okay, first of all, let me define a Twitter lesbian for all you people out there who think that it's a homophobic thing, because it's not. A Twitter lesbian is one thing and one thing only. It is a man who plays a woman but is so afraid of dick that she has to be a lesbian so he can still like chicks. So really, Twitter lesbians are the homophobic people, and then they accuse everybody else of being homophobic because we hate in others what we see in ourselves. Because if I decide, and by the way, Pete, his character MJF, Pete handles a female character, one of the only ones I've ever seen. MJF likes dick. She's got a boyfriend named Kevin. All on board for that character. Do your thing. It's the ones who tweet about fucking their girlfriends in their mansion who I'm like, really? Way to use it's always the people pretending to be woke, like, oh, I run a gay character, so I'm progressive, and you must be like a Trump supporter or something. Fuck you. You're treating gay people as a puppet show.
Yeah.
Because there are a bunch of gay wrestlers, and they're on Twitter, and you know what they're not tweeting about? Butt fucking in mansions. They're living their life because they're people. And you are essentially, if you want to try to out-woke me, you are culturally appropriating a sexual preference. You are pretending to be a gay person on the internet to make it part of your cool, quirky character. Fuck you. That's Twitter lesbian.
I tweeted it recently on my other account. Basically, being gay is not a gimmick.
It isn't. 100% it's not. If you decide to if you make a gay character and you just punch people in the face with the fact that they're gay all the time, you're either trying to get a reaction and you're baiting people, or you're doing something no different than making a gay character who farts sparkles and talks with a lisp. You are making them into a caricature when they're just regular people. Like, you can't make a black character as a white person and then write a bunch of tweets about, I'm gonna go eat some chicken. You can't do it. Everybody will acknowledge you're a racist piece of shit, and you probably are. So why is it okay to be like, well, I'm a lesbian, so I'm a pussy all weekend? Nah. Like, it's just as gross. It's exactly as gross. But for some reason, it's like the popular thing to do right now. And when people start talking shit about Twitter lesbians, they're talking shit about the male handlers who think that it would be gay if their character liked dudes, but they're totally okay to get down in the DMs and have fake lesbian sex with another dude also handling a girl so they can jerk off in their DMs and it's not gay. That's all they're doing. There's nothing wrong with being gay. And you could write a tastefully gay character. And it could be interesting, I guess, if you wanted to write, like, Ben Halcomb actually turned Johnny Legend gay. He had him come out of the closet. We worked a really dark storyline in HOW back in, 2014. And I made it very clear from the beginning, Ben, do not make him a caricature. He needs to just be Johnny Legend, but now he's gay, or else this whole storyline doesn't work. And ironically, the storyline was that Mike Best was a homophobic piece of shit, and Johnny Legend, had a thing. The whole storyline was Johnny Legend kind of has a crush on Mike Best and comes out to him. And Mike Best doesn't know how to handle it and flips the fuck out because he doesn't want anybody to think he's gay. Because he's a bad guy and he's a piece of shit character. And that was a tastefully written gay character. Now, it's Ben Halcomb. Eventually, he became a sparkle farter.
Ridiculously untasteful, yeah.
Yeah, but, for a while, it was a really good storyline. So that's all whenever anybody's making fun of Twitter lesbians, don't get all up in your feelings like people are being homophobic about you. They're just calling you out for some bullshit. For all the people who thought that Perry was a piece of shit because he wrote that Chang character in broken English and said he was basically doing yellowface, fuck you, because you were all males handling female characters who were gay. All of you. You were doing the exact same thing.
That's all of you out there. Next question from Genevieve. How big are your boobs?
I thought about this all week because I knew this question was coming up and I wanted to have a really clever answer. And the best I've got right now is they're AA, but I'm hoping to go to the majors. That's all I got.
From EW Mania, tell us about hashtag White Cloud Lives.
All right, first things first, Ben and I have re-released the White Cloud episode. So if you want follow-up on this in the long-form answer, there's like a 2-hour podcast that we just tweeted yesterday. But the White Cloud incident was maybe the best detective work that I've ever been a part of in e-fetting. Some years ago, there was a guy running around named, he was calling himself Eric something. I'm going to say Eric Fisher because I don't want to not know his name, but that wasn't his name. And he was like doing the rounds, coming on different e-fed podcasts because his dad had died like 5 years prior. And like his dad had died of cancer or something. And his son came around because his son was an e-fedder now. And he was going to do a White Cloud Memorial Tournament. His dad's character was White Cloud. And this kid was like 23 years old. Well, he comes on the HOW podcast, and there was just a bunch of weird stuff happening. Like the guy was clearly full of shit about a lot of things. Like he was telling a story about like, I want to say he said he like beat up his mom's boyfriend and hip tossed him into a pool, and the guy was too afraid to like press charges. Just like all that, like I'm a total badass type stories he was trying to tell, and everybody was like, "Oh man, cool," and we were all just rolling our eyes. And the more this guy made the rounds promoting his tournament, the more Ben and I were just getting suspicious. And I feel like we were probably drunk. This feels like something we did while we were drunk. Otherwise, I have no explanation for how it happened. It's got to be like 1 o'clock in the morning, and Ben and I are on Skype just shooting the shit. And one of us, I don't remember who, was like, what if this dude is like, what if he faked his own death and he's promoting his own memorial tournament? And the whole reason for it was because this guy was supposed to be 23, but he sounded like he'd been smoking Marlboro Reds without filters for longer than that.
Yeah.
Like he sounded like a 50-year-old man. Like, you know how Justin's got like a gruff voice? He has like a wrestler voice.
Yeah, everybody asked me why did I have a guy change his voice for the podcast?
Yeah, and that's just, by the way, that's just Justin's voice. I've talked to him on the phone a million times. But this guy's voice was like twice as grapply. Like, there was no way that this guy was 23 years old. So Ben and I started doing some digging, and we went to the website for the White Cloud Memorial, and we ran like a who is check and checked the source code for the site and got enough information to get the email address that was registered to the website. We used the email address and like cross-checked it with like the original handler's real name and used it to find his home address.
Oh my
We
gosh.
Googled his home address and used that to find a building permit for a porch that had been issued 2 weeks prior to this guy who was supposedly dead.
Oh no.
We dug up all this other current day information. This guy's just been quietly living his life. So then the last step is we looked him up on Facebook, and we found like the account it was like all locked up. You couldn't see anything on it, but you could see his friends list. And we found the name of the guy who was supposedly his son, which it turns out was his 15-year-old stepson. Ben took it a step too far. Ben contacts the kid and is basically like, did you know that your dad's impersonating you on the internet? And the kid's like, fuck, not again. So we did this whole podcast and outed him, and we just watched it's the most listened to live podcast I've ever been a part of. I want to say we had close to 1,000 people in the room listening to it because we were doing it on Mixlr, and we were just watching things burn. 2 feds closed that day. A bunch of like this guy's friends, because the most fucked up part is apparently there was a girl in one of these feds who this guy had been like, they were like online boyfriend and girlfriend or however that shit works. And so when this guy died, he vanished. So this woman was in legitimate mourning for her like dead internet boyfriend. Like they were supposedly in love and were going to run off together. So when this guy comes back as his own son, he's consoling this woman about his dead dad. This guy was a fucking sociopath.
Yeah.
And he did all this to promote this fucking tournament, which an HOW guy won. So I ended up making a poser of the belt, and we just made the White Cloud title a thing in HOW. And you'd win it by like, because HOW used to kill people a lot.
Yeah.
Like I had a phase with the HOFC championship for a while where I was bored with my character and I wanted to quit e-wrestling forever, but I knew so long as my character lived that I'd keep coming back. So I made the rules for the HOFC title deathmatch only, literal deathmatch. The only way to win was to survive. And the only way to get booked against me was to request it, because we weren't going to book anybody in a deathmatch against their will. And I kept winning these death matches and killing these characters off who were like guys who were like ready to let their characters die. So the only way eventually to win the White Cloud title was your character had to die, and that's how you won the belt.
I breeze over that and I just say, yeah, okay, because I've known that for some time, and that's the reputation that I've heard of how. But for others who aren't out, who haven't heard that before, legitimate death in wrestling.
Oh yeah, I cut Chris Kostoff's head off with a shovel. He was like, hey, I want to go out. He was in the same boat as me. He's like, I keep coming back and I don't have time. He's like, I just keep shitting on my own legacy, because he was a Hall of Famer. He was king shit back in like the early 2000s. And most people know Chris Kostoff now as a guy who writes like a 2-paragraph promo from his BlackBerry, because he's like in his late 40s or something. He has no time for e-fedding. He has a whole family and a job. He's role-playing from his phone, and they suck, and he knows they suck. But he just loves being a part of HOW, so he wanted to kill Kostoff. So he started the whole deathmatch thing with me. He's like, I want Mike Best to kill Chris Kostoff. We've been having wars for 10 years. Let's do it. 10 years, it wasn't 10 years back then, but I'm going to say 10 years every time. So that match ended with Chris Kostoff's head being cut off with a shovel. At War Games one year, we murdered Nickelback. We had a character get burned to death, and then his ashes were carried around in a Maxwell House coffee can. Like, being a part of HOW doesn't mean you risk death. We the only characters we've ever killed without consent are people who legit fucked the Fed. Like people who like went on tirades, like flaked, no-showed, and then like tried to fuck with like our name. Like, we didn't even, Justin turned tail and bailed on HOW like a coward to get out of a booked match against me. We didn't even put him on the next show. But, so like, you can join HOW, you don't worry about being murdered. It's consent only.
But only consensual murder.
Yeah, consensual murder is a good name for something. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to use that for something. That sounds like the name of a paper, like a sub pay-per-view. But yeah, so that was White Cloud and the greatest detective work that Ben Halcomb and I ever did together. We've tried to recreate the magic since, but it's never happened. That's
an amazing story. Mikey Unlikely was once killed in someone else's role play, but I just ignored it and moved on.
In HOW, Cecil Worth Farthington. For anybody who doesn't know Cecil Worth Farthington, if you ever used to listen to EFed Gorillas, it's Colin from EFed Gorillas, the Scottish guy. Legitimately my best friend. We're going on the Jericho cruise together in January. We've never even met, but that's the first time we're going to meet. We're going on the Jericho cruise. We talk every day. And in the previous era of HOW, he was going to quit and come to UTA with me because he was, like, when I get mad for him and he gets mad for me. We're way more defensive about each other than we are for ourselves. So he was going to bail and go with me, and he had an Icon title match against Brian Hollywood, and he was fucking sick of it. So he just, in his role play, had Noah Hansen murder him with a gun in his own role play. But the rest of the role play was so good, and HOW is a slave to its role play scores. We don't angle shit. Everything is the role play scores. And Hollywood's role play was so bad for that particular show, and Collins was so good that he ended up winning the match. So he has a claim to fame that he died in a role play and still won the match.
That's pretty good. This one is from someone you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chris America.
Oh yeah, he sent in a bunch.
What is it that you still want to accomplish in e-fedding?
Ah, man. See, it's tough. This is the weird humble brag or just brag portion of the podcast, I guess, because like I've spent at this point, it's safe to say most of my time, or at least half of my time as an E-Fedder, has been spent in one Fed, an HOW. In HOW, I'm in the Hall of Fame, and it's not to super shit on anybody else's Hall of Fame, but like if you're a Fed that's been open for less than 2 years and you have a Hall of Fame, go fuck yourself. Like, you can't get into a Hall of Fame when you've existed for 2 years. HOW has existed for almost 20 years now and has been open for about 14 or 15 years of that. And it took me 5 years to get into the HOW Hall of Fame. And at the time that I got in, I was the only 8-time world champion in its history. The next highest count was 5. I was a 5-time Icon champion, 3-time LSD champion, 3-time tag champion, 3-time HOFC champion, and the only guy to win every major match. We do the solitary confinement match at Rumble at the Rock, which takes place in solitary confinement at Alcatraz. I'd won the War Games match, which, I mean, you know what War Games is. Everybody knows what War Games is.
Sure.
But ours is really hard to win. I had won the big final match of every March. We have a March Madness style world title tournament. And I'd won that. I'd won like the marquee WrestleMania main event type paper. I had won everything. I had a resume the size of my arm in that Fed. And it still took me 5 years to get into the Hall of Fame. If you get into the HOW Hall of Fame, you're kind of set. I got really bored when I got into the Hall of Fame. So then my goal was to then get into the OCW Hall of Fame. I was like, I want to be in 2 Hall of Fames, because OCW was another Fed with a legit Hall of Fame. They'd been around since 98, and it took a minimum of a couple of years to get in. And I had run up like the shortest anybody'd ever get in. Matt Mayhew got in 2 years. So I was like, I could get in 2 years. I ran up, I want to say like a 30-match undefeated streak as the world champion there, and then they closed. And I was like, fuck, I'm going to try to get Will drunk, because the Fed head from OCW is the other guy going on the cruise with us. And I'm going to try to get him drunk on the cruise and have him put me into the Hall of Fame, even though the Fed's already closed. So
still counts.
I wouldn't mind getting into a second legit Hall of Fame, but that's a big commitment. I want to have a real legitimate feud with Eric Dane, not just some bullshit throwaway match in a tournament at EW Mania with no build-up, which is what we have coming up. By the time this airs, that match should already be done. We should already know the results of that match. Speaking of, also, by the time this podcast airs, I will have already shown up at the CWF pay-per-view and bought the rights to Eric Dane's last and only CWF world title, because CWF is joining High Octane Television, and the in-character trade being made is that Eric Dane's name is to be wiped from their title holder histories and replaced with my own, and I will, by the time this airs, be walking around with a CWF World Championship.
That's amazing.
He's going to be real mad. By the way, he's going to say he doesn't care and he doesn't give a shit, but he's going to be really mad. So what do I still want to do? Like, there's not a lot left. Like, it's going to be, stuff's going to come up. I have storylines I want to run. I have, like, ideas I want to roll with. I've probably got, if I really thought about it, I've probably got a couple, like, Cody Rhodes making an indie list-esque list of people I'd like to face. But for the most part, I think I've done about all I want to do, which is why I talk so much more shit now than I ever did.
Yeah,
and
free
I'm not
reign.
even saying, I'm not even saying that in like a weird braggy way. Like, I could go out and try to win a bunch of other world titles and other Feds, and maybe I could or maybe I couldn't. I don't know if my writing style holds up in like these more, these non-traditional Feds that are around now. They do things a different way. I don't know if I'd go into those Feds and get my ass kicked. It's very possible. So I just don't know. It's a really good question. I just don't have a good answer for it. I guess I want to become a double Hall of Famer. I want to be the first person in HOW to ever get voted in twice.
There you go. Second question by Chris. What's the biggest change in the last 10 years of the game?
I feel like we kind of answered this already earlier, but I can sum it up. We had this whole crop of people come in like 2014 and think that they invented e-fetting. And it was probably about 2014 is probably about the right time to attribute to that. And I mean, I say live your life and do what you want to do the way you want to do it. But they have determined that the way that we do it is wrong. And like, I hear the words bullying thrown around a lot now. We would have called you a word that starts with an F that you can't say anymore if you called somebody a bully in 2009.
Yeah.
It just was what it was. I don't know if you can say retard anymore. I'm still holding strong to retard. It's too good a word to use. So, like, I got called a boomer in a role play. Somebody said okay boomer to me in a role play in this last week. Mike Best is 33 years old. 33. Because at some point I adjusted the age. Like, I think it was when I was in Dream. I was like, I need to reset a continuity. And I just made Mike Best's birthday exactly a year after mine so that I could keep track of it.
Yeah.
So he's 33 years old. You can't call him a boomer. Like, he's just, come on, man. But, yeah, I mean, it's just a younger crop of kids, a sadder group of people, I think. Like, you know,
But they're woke.
Yeah, love him or hate him, Justin's a shit talker till he dies. He cannot take it worth a shit. He can give it out all day. He cannot take it at all. But he's a shit talker. Dan Ryan's a shit talker. Colin is a shit talker. I'm a shit talker. You're a shit talker. Ben's a shit talker.
That's why we get along.
Yeah, and like we're all buddies. And it doesn't matter. You and me, like, I mean, we talked a little shit about Jim Cornette on Twitter. We're still friends. This isn't an awkward podcast. But some people, you make fun of their theme music and you become a blood enemy and you're a bully. So it's just like, it's not even like, it's so cliche to be like, everything's so politically correct now. No, I mean, a lot of that stuff's good. You know what? Making fun of, calling people gay as an insult is fucking passe and it's over. Like, yeah, it is really lazy. But I come from a time where when your insults are lazy, you get clowned for it. You don't get canceled.
Right.
It's like it's like how the Republicans like free market economy instead of regulation. I'm not a Republican, but like that's the way that they'd explain it. The free market should regulate itself. Well, I don't think that works in economics, but I think it sure as shit works in something like e-fetting. If you suck and you're a hack, we're going to let you know it.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's getting retweets for dropping N-bombs in 2019 or saying racist shit. I'll clown you too. It's when we get down to, I got my Twitter account suspended because I said, I'll kick you in the forehead, you cunt, to a wrestling character. I got reported for threats of violence and had my account suspended for 24 hours. But you cunt, I am going to kick you in the forehead. Well, that word is misogynistic. No, it's not. That word is a body part. You can call me a dick and it's not misandrist. Like, men can be cunts too. Like, it's just, it's little stuff. It's just the mentality's just changed. Nobody wants to talk shit anymore.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. This one's from All Hail, Queen of the Ring. If you could change the outcome of one match, what match would it be and why? And it does not have to be your own.
Ooh, I could do one of mine and one of somebody else's. It's tempting to take the match that I no-showed because I had alcohol poisoning and lost a world title match to a scrub in his first ever match. He talked his way into a world title shot, and I was like, fine, I'll slap you around a little bit. And then I no-showed, and he won the world title. He lost it 7 days later, but it's the one true dark mark on my record in HOW. But that's not the one I'd change. The one I'd change is I was running up a record in HOW for longest reign with the Icon Championship ever. I was at like 163 days, and the record was 167. And so, of course, Lee doesn't like people to break records easy, so he booked me in 7 straight weeks of Icon title defenses. And I lost the 7th. to Scotty Wood. And if I hadn't lost that one, we were about to go into the pay-per-view role play cycle, and the Icon title wasn't part of the match that I was in at the pay-per-view. I was guaranteed to break the record if I just won that one match, a record that no one has broken since. Colin's about to break it. Cecil Worth Farthington's finally about to break that record, but that record went unbroken for 5 more years. And it's my one true regret was losing that match to Scotty Wood. So that might be mine that I'd turn around. Either that or losing my final OCW match to Mac O'Connor and snapping my undefeated streak 4 days before the Fed closed. But for other people's matches, that's tough. I think I'm still going to have to stick with HOW. Cecil Worth Farthington should have won the last War Games. And I was still on, I wasn't an active handler. I was still on the judging committee, but I was just outvoted. He ended up coming in second place. And I think he should have won. He should have had his first world title all the way back then. Because Colin had never won a world title in all the years he'd been EFEDing. It just never worked out. We refused to face each other. We just have no interest in it at all. And the whole time we were in OCW, I was the world champion. So he just didn't even want to challenge for it. He just won a different title. So he was the always a bridesmaid, never a bride of world championships. He finally had a shot at one. The entire Fed thought he should have won, except for the 2 other graders. So he came in second. And then the eventual champion, John Sector, flaked out 3 weeks later, disappeared, and lost his title by no-show. So that might be the one that I'd turn around. But now, since then, at the time of this recording anyway, Colin is the world champion going into our biggest pay-per-view of the year, Iconic, January 18th. Still some open spots. We're still recruiting. But so he did get his world title, and honestly, maybe he wouldn't be on the beastie run that he's on right now if it wasn't for that War Games. So maybe I wouldn't even change that.
It's crazy, right?
Actually, no, I have my answer, and I get to get one more Justin dig in. Justin's last match in HOW was against Darren Zion, known shitter of beds, and the role play scores were in, and Zion was supposed to beat Justin clean, and they knew that Justin was going to be a crybaby about it because he likes to play it cool, but he rage quits a lot of feds when he loses matches. Ask any fed head he's ever been in a fed with. The answer is pretty consistent. And I love Justin. I really do. Consider him a friend, but man, he's a crybaby. We knew he was going to rage quit or have a meltdown if he lost to Zion. So they passed it over to me, and they were like, read these role plays. Make sure that Zion wins. Make sure that we have a complete consensus on this. Because if we don't, we need to be prepared to justify. That's all. Because he's going to feel targeted. So I read him over, and in the role plays, I noticed that Darren Zion had attacked an HOW staff member in his role plays, and I was the only person who'd been around long enough to remember that was an unwritten rule of HOW. You get docked for creativity if you attack staff. If it's not in a segment, it's not with permission, because it's just hacky. So Zion lost a full point of creativity on his role play score, and Justin ended up winning his last HOW match by DQ, but I wouldn't have worked that hard to make sure it was all fair game if I'd known that less than 24 hours later he was going to get booked in a match against me, because 24 hours later is when I came out of retirement. I'd been out of retirement for about 4 hours, challenged him to a match, he accepted and quit the Fed 15 minutes later and said I made it not fun for him anymore.
By coming back?
By talking shit to him, because see, he made a little comment when he did the podcast before, and he goes, oh, well, Mike rattled off his fucking mouth because he didn't like that I made fun of his buddy with half a brain. Well, when he says made fun of his buddy with half a brain, he means OOC mocked a handler who had a tumor in his brain and had to have part of his brain removed. Not, hey, his buddy's stupid. Literally, there's a guy in our Fed who had to have brain surgery because he almost died of a fucking tumor. And Justin berated him and made fun of him for it almost every day for 6 months. And I asked him a million times, dude, I get it. Your whole, I'm an OOC dick. I put my dick on the table, blah. I get it. But stop. Because I know you think it's funny. And, I'm the king of the fourth wall break. I'm not, I can't throw too much shade about that, but I had a conversation with him 12 hours before he quit the Fed. and where he was like, I'm not quitting this Fed. He's like, I'm going down with the ship. I know everybody's going to think, everybody thinks I'm going to quit. Everybody thinks that I'm just here out of spite, but I'm not. I'm enjoying myself. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm going to speak my mind. And I said, that's fine, but I don't ever want to hear you complain again when somebody else says that you're a dick and they come after you. I don't ever want to hear you complain that you're targeted by another handler. I don't ever want to hear you complain that people are being mean to you. And he said, that's fair. I agree. And in preparation of doing this podcast, I don't need your opinion, but you can vouch for the fact that you saw those screenshots and that's accurate.
Yeah.
So less than 12 hours later, when he made one more comment about a guy in our Fed being fucking brain dead because they cut half of his brain out of his head, I started making fun of Justin, and I went at him the same way he went at that handler, and he quit almost right away. Dish it out, but can't take it. And I didn't really want to go on a Justin tirade on here, but it pissed me off listening to that, because to listen to the way he painted it, I'm just a dick and a bully. But he actively made somebody quit e-fetting. Like, the dude is no longer a handler because when he finally just blocked, he took Lee's advice and blocked Justin. So then Justin just mocked him in the Discord chat for being a pussy and blocking him. The dude is not a victim of anything. So yeah, I probably would have turned around his last match result, let him go ahead and take an L to a guy who he had previously lost to 2 times and raged about.
Makes sense. So we got a ton of questions from one Bobby Deen.
Beautiful Bobby
and
Deen.
Beautiful, beautiful Bobby Deen. We're going to run through them. I'm going to have you answer them quickly.
All right.
See how this goes. Question 1. Why do you like Bobby Deen?
Bobby Deen is the fucking best. Fat and skinny Bobby Deen are both the best. And the handler's the best too.
He is the best boy. Hey, Bobby. Why did your brother leave the game so soon? I enjoyed his work.
Oh, man. My brother, I can't answer this one quick, but I'll be as quick as I can about it. My brother is infinitely more talented than I've ever been. And he handled 2 characters in a Fed called SVO that both fucking killed me. One was named Alex Ross, and Alex Ross closed the Fed because he fought the same pay-per-view opponent like 4 pay-per-views in a row. And he was just like tired of this guy repeatedly getting title shots and being a politician and fucking whining every time he lost. And he was going off to college. And he knew he wasn't going to have time to e-fed anymore. So he waited until the deadline, like 10 minutes before the deadline, posted a role play where with the world title over his shoulder, he put a shotgun in his mouth and killed his character. The whole pay-per-view was basically already written, and the Fed ended up closing. They reopened a year later with the Alex Ross Memorial Tournament. My brother joins secretly as like a former cop with PTSD. He had a particularly nasty case that he never recovered from. And he came back to wrestling, and he was like, he became a wrestler instead. And he was like haunted by these visions. There was like this voice in the back of his head telling him to do things. And we find out come the finals for the world title that the voice in his head is Alex Ross. And Alex Ross convinces him to blow his brains out in a bathroom stall with a shotgun the night before the pay-per-view. He got him twice. And then he also had a character called The Poet. And there's a guy, he's still floating around. I think he's in, I want to say the Fed is XWF. I could be wrong. But it's the Fed that like James Raven is in. There's a guy named Peter Gilmore. Peter Gilmore is actually the inspiration for one of my secret side characters. And he's basically like, I would assume he was 10 years old if I didn't know he was pushing 60. And his role plays are always those like, Peter Gilmore walks into the room. It is dark. Peter Gilmore looks at the camera. I'm going to beat you this week. I'm going to make you my bitch. Peter Gilmore leaves. And that's the whole role play. And then he pisses and moans when he loses. So like a guy like you or me.
Yeah.
He's just the worst. He hosts a college radio show where he talks about Peter Gilmore like he's a real person. It's gross. And the dude's like pushing 60. He's still around. I just found out recently he's still around, and he's an XWF, and he's still just as bad. But so
is
this
he still
guy
Peter Gilmore?
He's still Peter Gilmore. You can look him up right now. If you look up Peter Gilmore XWF on Google, you can find him. And his YouTube account, where he still almost daily posts reviews of wrestling shows that are like an hour-long rambling tirades about conspiracies. It's the best. So my brother joins Hostility, which was the Fed that this dude was in, and I was in at the time, is a character named The Poet. And he just wrote these short, shitty, didn't rhyme poems, 2 or 3 lines, and he would just job out. And then he got himself a pay-per-view match against Peter Gilmore. And the whole time, he knew he wanted this match against Peter Gilmore. So he was writing these 2 to 3 sentence role plays. Quietly in the background, he is writing an epic poem. And I don't mean, bro, that poem was epic. I mean, an epic poem, like the Iliad or the Odyssey. And he writes the Epic of Peter Gilmore and drops essentially 50 or 60 pages of role play written in actual, like, epic poem format on Peter Gilmore for the pay-per-view, and then just quits the Fed. I miss my brother being an E-Feder. The short version of why he's never coming back is because my brother lives out in L.A. He is a comedy writer and like a graphic designer, and he makes like 6 figures a year, and he has no fucking time for E-Feding. I'm lucky if we have time to play like a couple rounds of Call of Duty a week. Last week he was at a party where he hung out with Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad. He's done with E-Feding forever.
I would say so. Number 3, other than Howl, what's the best Fed you've ever been in?
Oh man, that's a tough call. Dream was really good. OCW was really good. The writers weren't the best, but Will was the fucking best. It's other than H, it's got to be UTA though. UTA overall was just the other best Fed I've ever been in. I can't even say it was like HOW's better. In my mind, I think of them equally. I wish it had stuck around longer, and I wish I'd brought in Mike Best and had a real run. That was a great Fed.
Yeah, it was. Number 4, do you care if or when you piss people off?
It depends. Believe it or not, about 90% of the time when I go too far, I reach out to that handler and we hash it all out. That's why I'm friends with a lot of guys who I used to be at war with. Guys like Brennan Devlin, Hollywood Hudson, whatever he goes by. We're all cool, and we were like blood feuding at one point. Me and Jeremy, Madman Zelinsky, we talk on the phone all the time. Me and Jordan Snow hashed our shit out this week. Even me and Justin are currently being civil, even though he really doesn't like me right now. And the thing is, it's because I'm not hostile toward any of those people. I'm just having fun at their expense, which isn't nice. And yeah, I am kind of a bully, but also fuck you. I'll bully you if I want to.
Especially you, Bobby Deen.
Yeah, if I know I've gone too far, 90% of the time, I'm going to reach out and apologize. I might even do it publicly. So if you're listening to this and you're like, fuck you, you never apologized to me, that's because I don't think I went too far.
Number 5, have you ever felt that you've gone too far? If so, explain.
Yeah. Earlier on this podcast, I called Justin a fat waiter. That was probably a step over the line. Don't edit it out. I want my mistake aired for good heat purposes. But yeah, I've gone too far a few times. I buried HOW pretty hard when I went to UTA, and I had to make my amends with Lee. I went too hard on Jeremy for a while. And I called a handler. There was this girl on Twitter going at me, like the pick base versus poser character thing or something, and she said something, and I was just like, ooh, you sound like you're real fat, OOC. and that was bad enough, but then OOC picture day rolled around, and she posted a picture, and she was a land whale, and I just tweeted back, I was like, I was right. That was probably the most over the line I ever went. I ended up posting my own picture on Twitter and being like, fucking let me have it. It's fair enough. But I'm a beautiful man, so it's hard to hit me back.
Number 6, do you and Lee get along?
Most of the time. In 2019, we've been on the same page, but like I said earlier, in the past, we used to fight like cats and dogs. Like the phrase clocking out used to be used a lot. Like I text him something to piss him off and he'd go clocking out. Or I used to send him hashtag hobby not a job a lot. Especially when it came to like graphics or something. But for the most part now, we're pretty much on the same page all the time. We're just getting too old to, like, he's got fucking real life stress and I've got real life stress, and we just don't have time to fight anymore. So most of the time now we agree. And if we don't now, we have better ways of working around it. We used to just fight like crazy.
Why did you change from your shoot name to Best, and why in the world would you use your real name, you silly boy?
Yeah, because I was 10 years old and I didn't know better, and Google wasn't a thing, and I changed it because Google was a thing.
There you go. Simple enough. You kind of explained that one earlier.
Yeah.
Lastly, but not leastly, for Bobby Deen, who are the top 5 writers you like or hate to read?
Ooh, like or hate. I guess I could do both. Top 5 I love to read. Cecilworth Farthington is number 1. Max Cale is number 2, but they could be interchangeable depending on the day. After that, it gets a little more difficult. Nobody be offended if I don't name you. There was a guy back in the day named Kelly Flawless who was just the best. If anybody out there knows how to get a hold of Kelly Flawless, fucking have him hit me up, because me and that dude were a tag team for a while, and he was so good. I can't even explain Kelly Flawless. He did like a series of role plays where a hooker stole his testicles and he got AIDS and had to find Magic Johnson to get the cure. And it was before South Park did it. Kelly Flawless was the best. He's got to be number 3. Number 4. See, if I read your stuff at all, I'm a fan. So even if you're not on the list, if you know I read your role plays, I don't read most role plays. I'm a big fan of Dan Ryan, who's in HOW right now, but he's been around the block a million times.
Yep.
And Justin's actually going to make both of my lists. When Justin is good, his shit talk is prime, and I love Justin role plays. But then Justin is also, I'm just going to make him number 1 on the next list in no particular order. But when Justin's role plays are bad, they're like hack carny bullshit. Like, yeah, dude, we get it. You're an old grizzled ring veteran. How many times can you write that role play? Scott Stevens is one of my least favorite to read when he sucks, because Scott, we call him Stevenspedia. He has like every stat in the world, but he doesn't know how to use it. So if he's facing a woman, he's just going to list every woman that's ever been in HOW. He faced Great Scott in OCW, and he basically just spent a whole role play naming other famous people named Scott, and he forgot to put himself on the list. He lost to Great Scott, who was a jobber character in OCW in a straight up role play contest. Man, honestly, as much as I like shitting on things, the dislike list is a lot harder. One, it's hard to narrow it down because a lot of y'all are trash. And 2, just because I don't wanna single anybody out. I already feel gross about doing a don't like list because I'm really not a fucking bad guy. Basically, you are on the list of things I don't like when your shit is self-indulgent crap. Like, when you need to ask a million people for roleplay feedback because you know that nobody but the Fed head who has to read your 6,000-word roleplay is going to read it, you're on my list.
That's awesome. Great way to sum up the interview and a great way to end it. Mike, before we go, is there anything you want to shout out to? I know you want to give a plug to HO Wrestling. We can do all that.
Yeah, HOWrestling.com, High Octane Wrestling. We are headed into our biggest pay-per-view of the year, Iconic, January 18th. You could probably still get like a spot on like the undercard if you were to join soon. We have a strong writer base right now, but we lost a lot of people around the holidays, even if it's just temporarily. So we're always looking for people now. And then we're going strong. We plan to come back and do like monthly shows for like 6 months. And instead we're running bi-weekly shows and with no end in sight. We're just back rolling again. We may even move to weekly, coming up here after the holidays. And we have a world title tournament coming up after Iconic starts the March Madness tournament, which culminates at the end of March. You can join the Fed off the street and be put into this world title tournament. We do it every year. The Lee Best Invitational. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. I'm not a staff member, but I'm basically our Twitter contact because Lee hates Twitter. He despises Twitter. He hates everything about it. He might log on once a week and he won't follow anybody but me and Scotty would. So you can't even DM him. So get a hold of me and I'll set you up. or you can go to howrestling.com/application. There should be a link to it on the main site. You get posers once you've proven you're going to be around for a little bit. I do the posers. I think I do a decent job. That's HOW. We also have the High Octane Television Network, HOTV, which is basically, it's the WWE network before the WWE network. I'm so pissed that that's a thing, because now we look like we copycatted it, but it's been around since 2002. And it's basically just like, if you want to be an HOTV fed, all it means is you get to say your fed's on HOTV, which means you can get away with putting whatever content in your shows you want. If you're going to tell me your show is on Fox and you're dropping motherfuckers every other line, I'm going to call you a liar. HOTV, if you want to get away with murder, you can literally get away with murder. If you want to be on HOTV, I give you a banner, you throw it into your show commercials. It's as easy as that. And we also will do stuff with HOTV feds. By the time this airs, CWF, Championship Wrestling Federation, will have become an HOTV fed. And we'll be looking to do some stuff with them heading into the new year. And we're always looking for other HOTV feds too. There's no real commitment involved in it aside from, it's basically a glorified affiliate program. So if you're interested in that too, hit me up. Angle feds, welcome. Role play feds, welcome. Hybrid feds can fuck off, because hybrid feds to me means it's all decided by the role plays unless we don't want you to win.
Basically, yeah.
It would be. I know you beat the dog shit out of him, but it would be better if you didn't. I think that's really all my plugs. This was so much fun that I'm probably going to start doing mic'd up again. High Octane Radio is a very different show from this, so I don't feel bad plugging it. Mic'd
go
up,
ahead.
Yeah, mic'd up is usually Cecilworth Farthington and I, me and Colin, just talking shit about whatever. We usually do like topical episodes. So we'll do like, we did an episode at one point about like how much freedom of speech should be allowed in e-wrestling. When does it go too far? When are you a dick? Blah, blah, blah. Or we might do an episode on like good heat versus bad heat, or what we like to see in a good baby face, what we like to see in a good heel. It's just subjective. Some people like it, some people don't, but we're going to be bringing that back soon. That'll be a good time. Might even do one live from the boat if I decide to spring for the unlimited internet package. And that's all my plugs.
That was fun.
Went 2 hours.
Yeah, dude, 2 fucking hours.
I'm long-winded. I'm sorry. Sometimes I get rolling and I get on tangents.